There is no death, but there is a belief in death. The reality of death is firmly rooted in the belief that God's Son is a body. And if God created bodies, death would indeed be real. Death is the symbol of the fear of God. His love is blotted out in the idea, which holds it from awareness like a shield held up to obscure the sun. The grimness of the symbol is enough to show it cannot coexist with God. The shrouded figures in the funeral procession march not in honor of their Creator, whose will it is they live. They are not following it, they are opposing it. And what is the black draped body they would bury? A body they dedicated to death, a symbol of corruption, a sacrifice to sin, offered to sin to feed upon, and keep itself alive. A thing condemned, damned by its maker, and lamented by every mourner who looks upon it as himself. It holds an image of the Son of God in which he is laid to rest in devastation's arms, where worms wait to greet him and to last a little while by his destruction. Yet the worms as well are doomed to be destroyed as certainly. And so do all things live because of death. Devouring is nature's law of life. The body neither lives nor dies, because it cannot contain you, who are life. When your body and your ego and your dreams are gone, you will know that you will last forever. Many think that this is accomplished through death, but nothing is accomplished through death because death is nothing. Everything is accomplished through life, and life is of the mind and in the mind. The world you see is the delusional system of those made mad by guilt. For this world is a symbol of punishment, and all the laws which seem to govern it are the laws of death. Look carefully at this world, and you will realize that this is so. We know that the result of an idea leaves not its source. And death is a result of the thought we call the ego, as surely as life is the result of the thought of God. Death, made by the ego, its dark shadow falls across all living things, because the ego is the enemy of life. And yet, a shadow cannot kill. What is a shadow to the living? They but walk past, and it is gone. From the ego came sin and guilt and death, in opposition to life and innocence, and to the will of God himself. The death penalty is the ego's ultimate goal, for it fully believes that you are a criminal, as deserving of death as God knows you are deserving of life. The death penalty never leaves the ego's mind, for that is what it always reserves for you in the end. Wanting to kill you, as the final expression of its feeling for you, it lets you live but to await death. It will torment you while you live, but its hatred is not satisfied until you die. For your destruction is the one end toward which it works, and the only one with which it will be satisfied. Where can such opposition lie, but in the sick minds of the insane dedicated to madness, and set against the peace of heaven? One thing is sure, God, who created neither sin nor death, wills not that you be bound by them. He knows of neither sin nor its result. For death is not of the real world in which everything is eternal. God gave you the real world in exchange for the one you made, out of your split mind, and which is the symbol of death. Death is a human affirmation of a belief in hate. The ego is not a traitor to God to whom treachery is impossible, but it is a traitor to you who believe you have been treacherous to your Father. That is why the undoing of guilt is an essential part of the Holy Spirit's teaching. For as long as you feel guilty, you are listening to the voice of the ego, which tells you that you have been treacherous to God, and therefore deserve death. You will think that death comes from him, and not from the ego, because, by confusing yourself with the ego, you believe that you want death. And from what you want, God does not save you. And now his own creation must stand in fear of him. He is not Father, but Destroyer. He is not Creator, but Avenger. Terrible his thoughts and fearful his image. To look on his creations is to die. No one who follows the ego's teaching is without the fear of death. If death were thought of merely as an end of pain, would it be feared? Would God, who wants only your will, be capable of this? He did not make death because he did not make fear. Both are equally meaningless to him. Your will is his life, which he has given to you. Even in time you cannot live apart from him, for sleep is not death. What he created can sleep, but it cannot die. No one can die unless he chooses death. What seems to be the fear of death, is really its attraction. For if you could really separate yourselves from the mind of God, you would die. And the world you perceive is a world of separation. Yet God's Son cannot will death for himself, because his Father is life, and his Son is like him. God would not be loving. Death would indeed be the death of God, if he is love. Immortality is his will for his Son, and his Son's will for himself. If we share the same mind, You can overcome death because Jesus did. Death is an attempt to resolve conflict by not willing at all. Like any other impossible solution which the ego attempts, it will not work.